Hello, my friends. Tatiana Kolavu here. I'm so happy to have you with me. It's 1 month before the crazy holiday celebration, and I thought it would be a good idea since this is the time of the year where projects get pretty scrunched. We all have many things that we need to accomplish, and we're sending lots of messages to one another. Not a bad time of the year to remind ourselves to communicate with tact and diplomacy. So, as we get started today, I wanted just to welcome you first, encourage you to write in the comments where you're coming in from. We've got over 100 people signed up for the workshop, and this recording is going to live on my LinkedIn Live for quite a while. So, you can go back and watch it if you didn't get a chance to. Or you can send it to one of your colleagues if they need to get this content. So anytime we do a workshop, in the LinkedIn Live platform, it's a little bit of a lonely place because I don't have a colleague to interact with and talk to. One of the things we want to do is incentivize you. So you can see here that this stronger, nice little hardtop notepad is one thing we share with you if you go ahead in the notes and write hashtag stronger. So you're telling us that you want to go in on the raffle at the end of the class, at the end of the workshop. So send us a comment for the giveaway as well. So let's go ahead and get started in talking about communicating with tact and diplomacy. In full disclosure, this is a LinkedIn learning course that I've had on the platform for quite a while. But when I went back and looked at it, I thought that it was really well designed because it followed the concept of you learn the concepts, you understand them, you see them be applied, and then you see an interaction and you respond yourself, or we interacted in the course and figuring out what should the protagonist do next. And that's what I wanted to do with all of you here today. Hello, Matthew. Where are you coming in from? Tell us there too. I know Marley is in Sao Paulo, Brazil, and I've communicated, and I appreciate you coming in from this. Dimitris is in Belgium, a Greek in Belgium, and Lais, I'm not sure where you're coming in from. Do tell us. You're here either to learn new tools. I was brainstorming myself. Thank you, Matthew. Thank you. And Agnes, are you Swiss or are you in Switzerland? Oh, you are Alice Mariakaki. You probably are Greek as well. So you want to learn some of the concepts, you want to practice them, but you also want to get some of your questions answered. And I know tact and diplomacy communication things maybe have deeper context and they get a little tricky, but if there's something that you can share with me and I can help you process with one of the outlines, I'm happy to do that. Florencia from Argentina, thank you, thank you. Matthew, excited to attend the presentation. I really appreciate it. So as we get started, I would want to say that I found this very nice description of diplomacy is a subtle diplomacy is the subtle, skillful handling of situations. Tact is the considerate communication that avoids giving offense. So what that means specifically is together, they are the core credibility skills for leaders. I'm going to assume that each of you are leading your careers. You are possibly communicating and leading others, even though you are in an external team. These communication tools are so very important, especially in our times. The American Management Association sets this as one of the top people skills. And I do think diplomacy and tact has gone away because what we do quite often, we send messages either on a Slack message or any kind of chat thread or social media or any kind of email where we go right into the conversation. We don't soften even by saying a good morning. Do you have this? Might you, or not even might you be able to share this? So we're a little bit direct and we lose the opportunity to continue to build the relationship. We have our LinkedIn user from Rice, Washington State, someone else from Arizona, and a friend from Ethiopia. Welcome and thank you for joining us. And another friend from Brazil. Wonderful. So as you consider this, people are diplomatic sort of as their way of communicating always, and tact quite often depends on the context. But one of the things I want to clearly say is that if you want to communicate with tact and diplomacy, we're going to assume these three things. Number one, that you really care for the relationship that you're interacting with. This is not a supermarket interaction. Number two, that there's consequences and the conversation matters and it's worth you putting your energy into it. My friends, we cannot always constantly be on our game and be tactful and diplomatic. We're going to cut someone off as we're driving. We're going to get annoyed with someone in the movie theater speaking behind us and be pretty direct. But again, we're looking at, in general, the tool that we can use in the workplace. Nola, welcome from Kentucky. Remember to do hashtag stronger. So we know what it is that we need to do. And quite often we have to give ourselves a little bit of grace of knowing when we want to use tact and diplomacy. I consider tact to be in the moment behavior. You kind of take something into consideration, you read a message, you read an email, and you respond. It includes a good heavy load of good active listening because you're trying to process what the communication and the information is without trying to respond right away. You're still trying to build rapport and you're trying to be polite. And also, really important, you're trying to be empathetic. Empathy is a really, really big part of good and being a good listener and also nurturing the relationship. So we build and use these skills on a regular basis. I go back and say, and I'm not sure how you feel about this, or maybe I should ask this question. Do you think that the use of technology quite often strips tactful communication? Yes or no? You can answer. Quite often, in my belief, because we want to be fast and we want to focus on results, we tend to lose that level of politeness. But maybe I'm not, I may be wrong and you may think differently. You can let us know. We have another friend coming in from San Francisco, California. The tricky part of doing this, and I'll tell you this, is being able to see what questions are here and what the comments are. But we have a great producer today with us, Natasha Merriweather. Give her a hand because she's behind the scenes answering some questions and making sure that this runs smoothly. So if tact is a behavior, I consider diplomacy to be more of a mindset. You are a diplomatic person because maybe of your culture, because of your upbringing, because of your background, because of your experiences. Many of you say, yes, that technology does get in the way, and I would agree with you. I want us all to say, if you have here, Matthew, thanks for agreeing. If you maybe we all try to keep ourselves accountable, but diplomacy is not something you do at the grocery store line. That's allowing someone that has fewer items than you do to go first. That's just a kind and polite act. Diplomacy is truly the combination of the two, is to protect and nurture relationships, especially when things get trickier in the workplace. So as of you, we have one more friend. It takes more effect to sound polite via chat. Florencia, 100% agree. And sometimes it doesn't take more than just saying, hold on a second here. I shouldn't try my own tricks here with this. It shouldn't take more than just saying, Natasha is going, stop playing with the controls. Quite often, you just have to be thinking of it. I'm Greek. I don't know if you can tell, the Greek flag is here. I talk a lot about it on the platform and in my courses. We have a way of pleasantries around interacting. We always say, starting a week, we say, Kali Evdomada, have a good week, have a good month at the start of the month, good morning, good evening, good continuation, sort of like saying you're welcome. The pleasantries around the day-to-day are also things that you can easily add to chat and messages. Or I have a quick question for you. I'd like to know this because it doesn't take too much to write, as Florencia says, but quite often it nurtures the relationship. Matthew says that IT means you lose elements of communication that can lead to misexpression and misunderstanding. Again, I 100% agree with you, Matthew. quite a few misconceptions or assumptions are made because we don't share at least the camera, or at least we don't share the air in the room. So people quite often are working fast. Maybe they're going on their background and experiences from the past, and they make quick assumptions. So if you really want to communicate with tact and diplomacy, and you're trying to work on this skill, in the course that I share, I talk a little bit about a formula that is based and grounded on communication. Whether you're receiving a message or you need to send a message, you encode and decode. So if you are receiving a message, whether it's verbal, whether it's an email, whether it's a text, you need to take some time to decode the message in your head. Quite often we are tactless and not very diplomatic when we jump and respond, and then we look back and think we could have done this better. So take the time to decode, and then, or you may have to speak first, depending on if you're the sender or receiver. You may need to take time to formulate your message. Formulating your message in an email is easier because you take a little time to write. Quite often in face to face, when you're caught off guard, it's difficult to encode in a way that's diplomatic. Again, we learn from our mistakes and challenges that we've had, but if we can think of taking a little bit of time and seeing it as a processing of language in our minds, we take a little time to think what we say, or we receive information and we take a little time to think about it too. Jose, hello from Illinois too. Good to see you. The formula then goes on to saying, really, you need to add a good splash of politeness, whether that is politeness that says, if you're intruding in someone else's day, it's okay to say, I would like to have a minute of your time for a question. Instead, I have a question. That's pretty direct. Politeness comes with being a little indirect. And I have many friends on the platform that speak on communication skills that are assertive and direct and appropriately professional. But in the case of diplomacy and tact, you may want to use what we call a deferred politeness of recognizing you're intruding, recognizing you're taking time from someone, and say, if you don't mind, I have this question. So depending on the situation, I recommend some of that deferred politeness that we'll talk about in a bit. And finally, timing your message effectively. This is really, really important, because if you take the time to think of what you will say and you don't respond right away, or if you say, you know what, this is an important topic that I want to discuss at a time that where we're both not juggling 100 things in the air. Yes, let's take the time. This matters enough to me. You can buy some time to communicate. So think of the communication process, encoding and decoding, how you share the message, how it comes through. Think of adding a splash of politeness, and also being sure that you are communicating and taking the time to do that, or managing the timing. So as you're sharing all of this, I'm curious again to say, you probably want to practice some of these, and we'll talk about that in a bit. I want to go back to politeness, or the decoding and encoding that I mentioned earlier. You're either sending a message, and depending on the situation, you want to be clear, you want to be empathetic, you want to choose the right channel, and you want to find the right context. So when you send a message, be mindful of this. I'm going to give you an example of something that I just shared earlier today that went really well. And then if you decode or you receive a message, be really careful of how you listen, what your face looks like when you listen, what your nonverbals looks like when you look like when you listen, and that you are clear what the intent of the other person is. We were filming, my colleague Brenda Bailey Hughes and I have a course on listening that just came out this month, and we are filming some promotional stories and some clips on that. And I had to think of a person being diplomatic and tactful in a tricky or emotional situation. In this case, this person was a supervisor, and there was an issue with the person that worked under him. I happen to know the person that worked under him because he was one of my former MBA students. And he had communicated with me, this is stressful, Tatiana. I want to prepare for this conversation. I'm feeling anxious about the result. Before we knew it, the leader said, Tom, let's go grab some coffee. The conversation was scheduled for later in the week. And he said, let's go grab some coffee. The leader did such a good job being empathetic. He knew that the conversation was tense, and he said, how are things going? Can we talk about what we were going to talk about later? Can we do it now? And he was so smart in managing the context. The context was them walking side by side to get coffee. So it was not very difficult for Tom, my student, to look at him in the eye because he was not as comfortable. It was a delicate matter. And he also, as the leader, knew to kind of bring himself to the same level. Instead of saying, come to my office to discuss this, he changed the context and really minded the power dynamic. So he encoded in a way that made listening easier and made the other person more at ease. For me, that was a very diplomatic move that he did. And the result was very positive, but that was a suave and well-seasoned manager to know to pull the let's go get some coffee and change the context and be mindful of the power dynamic. Another friend, hello, Ilhalji, he tells us he's from Senegal. We have so many international attendees. I love it because myself, I'm a person from the world out there, quite a global citizen. So it's really nice to see all of you. In a little bit, I'm going to ask you to answer some questions. So be thinking of a situation where you had to be diplomatic and tactful yourselves. So we talked a little bit about encoding. We talked about decoding, whether you're sending or you're receiving a message. And one more piece you need to consider is whether you are making a connection. You're polite, saying your pleases and thank yous, your good mornings, your good evenings. This is considered standard, right? But we don't do it. We have to be reminded. And also to have deference-based politeness. If you are intruding in someone else's space and day, or if you're asking for something, it's okay to apologize. That adds that level of politeness that is useful, especially if you're using technology to communicate and it's not face-to-face. I put here considering cultural context because quite a few direct cultures are being, I would say, misinterpreted for being harsh or rude. So always kind of know who you're working with and what your context is specifically too. Matthew here mentions that the manager that said, let's go for coffee, removed barriers for future meetings. You're right, because Tom won't say every time I talk to the boss, he's unbearable and I don't want to do it. So think of how you encode and decode the message. Think of the pleasantries, especially if you're looking at communicating with technology, and think of if you are being polite or if maybe there's a deference-based politeness. Honestly, you can get people that are at a higher level than you to do many things if you are diplomatic and tactful at the right times. This is really, really important. So I'm going to ask you, let's look at this, the next piece here. As you craft a message, finally, it's your time to communicate. And as you craft a message, you start with one question. You need to know who the audience is and what's your relationship with them. Then decide if you are approaching directly or indirectly, what's the tone you're going to use, and what's the channel you're going to use. Are you going to send an email or pick up the phone? Remember, tact is saying what needs to be said in a way that others can truly hear it. So sometimes the timing is not right for your message to come through. You may want to wait, or you may want to say, I have something important I want us to discuss, but let me know when you're not too busy or distracted, because this, I think, does need your attention. So the message that you craft is also really important. All right. We're going to go into two things. From a learning standpoint, I know that it's important that you all are practicing or applying some of this. And I want you to think about, and you don't have to disclose and write anything out. Think about a recent situation or conversation where you admit that you could have communicated a little more with politeness and tact, whether that is a message you sent, a voicemail you sent, and whether you could have tweaked the timing or whether you could have been mindful of the audience or the timing. I would like for you to share, maybe let me get the slide here. I leave this out here, share one lesson that you learned. I'll leave the slide up for just a minute. So somewhere I like to write, it keeps me a little bit more accountable. I have notepads all over my desk. And if you think of a recent professional interaction where you communicated with more tact, you could have communicated with more tact and diplomacy. Since we're talking about this, ask yourselves these questions. Did you take some time to process your response, or were you quite impulsive and quick? Did you think of what the other person's viewpoint was? Knowing what you know now, what could you have done differently? Did you consider timing? Did you consider your tone? Did you consider the right channel? So the work is on you for just a moment. I'd like for you to consider this. And all I want to share is one lesson that you learned. This is assuming we can only control what we control. I'm sure maybe the other person may own some of this if there's conflict communicated, but I want to talk about you and what you could have done differently for a better outcome. At the bottom of the slide, I say, share one lesson that you learned out of this in the chat. So you may want to own some of this. Again, accountability here is important. And you will share in the chat what you would do differently. That's pretty much what we're asking you to do. Let me put this out here. So think of a time, think that you could have done something better, and then we're processing some of the things that we're learning. I'm going to be quiet and let you fill the chat. Huh. I have 2 people responding. We're going to need more than that. I feel like I'm teaching. I teach an undergraduate course with over 200 students. I ask a question, crickets. Nobody speaks, even in person. And I say, no, not everyone at once. I can't hear myself. So I want to see some more responses here. What's one thing you could have done differently? Nola says, I've answered impulsively before I had to go back and apologize. Oh no. And Nola, sometimes we want to be snipey and say, are you kidding me? And maybe we have friends that we call and say, can you believe this person did that? Just so we vent. But if we say it in real time, as you said, then I have to go back to apologize. And as Nola said here, it has never happened again. Good learning. It just takes a lot to fix. Matthew said, I was impulsive and did phrase it the best I could, but maybe you didn't encode, and encoding sometimes takes a little time, some deep breathing, or it may even take, my friend Matthew, a colleague or a friend, an ally that you share and you say, I'm struggling with this. I need a little bit of help. Sometimes it takes a village to be tactful and diplomatic. My friend here says, slow down and use a most tactic venue. I'm not sure if you meet a message channel, so maybe it's better to put something in writing than saying it in person, or maybe it would be easier. You could save the relationship because you are saying it in person. Let's see here. I would think more about the person's viewpoint. Lace, you're so right. This is the empathetic side. Whatever they're saying and doing, maybe their day is not going the way they want it to. Play this game. I play this game with my husband. It drives him crazy. When someone doesn't drive very well in the car in front of us, doesn't turn on a flashlight, doesn't change lanes too fast without noticing, or stops or brakes all the time, I do the empathetic. He will make a comment about the person's bad driving, and I said, maybe this is the first time they receive their license and they're very nervous. I drive him crazy. I do the sort of empathetic piece, and he stops then complaining. Let me see here. Yanis is saying, less talking, more listening to understand where the other party is really coming from. Exactly. I was referring to the listening course that just came out this week, but so much of this is putting our emotions on the side and really listening, thinking I'm going to be here and surrender to the listening process, not to try to think what I'm going to say next. I am now officially losing track. Maybe you can help me a little bit here. I was looking for Natasha's help. Jose says, timing. I like to make sure my responses are accurate and consider their point of view, but at times it takes longer to respond. And Jose, I like what you say. So quite often, if a lack of time creates tension, you may say, Tatiana, I got your message. I need to think about this a little if you don't mind. I'll get back to you tomorrow. That's buying time without allowing a void of information, because in that amount of time where there's no information, Tatiana is thinking of all the crazy things that she's making up in her mind. But by telling me, hey, I need to think about it, I'll get back to you, it takes you one more sentence, but it takes a lot of fixing later what may be happening. Maliha says, I'm struggling with this. I was told my tone is aggressive or not assertive. I'm trying to find a middle ground and it's hard. Maliha, I would recommend using an AI tool. I use Udemy role plays quite often of helping people practice their tone, or it may mean that you may need to add some pleasantries. Thank you so much for taking the time to write that email. That's an important issue. And then you say what you say. So maybe you practice it in writing, but I'm not sure if the tone is coming across in your speaking. I also wonder if what the relationship is, maybe you are rushed, or maybe you are feeling this is more urgent, and maybe that tone comes off. But that feedback is golden for you, and you can work on that if that improves the relationships. Melissa says, in the past, I've jumped into the firefight and solution find without pausing to understand more and not allowing the other person to help in the solution finding process. That's right. So you're not inviting them, and so now you have to sell them on it. The pause, listening to understand, and genuine discovery made the difference in the future. Yay, this is a good wrap up of the course, because it truly says taking the time and decoding the message that you receive. And even if you say, I'm on pause for decoding, I need a few hours to think through this, that also is honoring the relationship, and it shows that you care. So fantastic here. I see here, Christos, I want to address this. I tried to be diplomatic and polite and got feedback from my manager that I was not aggressive enough. We were just talking about this. I'm struggling with this feedback because I bet that, Christo, you in your personality are diplomatic enough. And so maybe you have to find, where do you need to be direct? Or in some situations where there's timing, there's energy, urgency, you need to come across. And I wonder, Christo, if it's in writing or in person, because in writing you can be just one sentence, good morning, I want to make sure I reference this, boom, and you respond. So maybe the piece that says diplomatic, I'd love to see it if it's too long, or maybe it's not concise enough, or it is too forgiving. So I don't have that context. Maybe you can jump in with this a little more. I look at all these comments. You all are amazing. Pratisha says, in a professional team meeting, I called out a senior colleague that was not doing what was required. In retrospect, I should have been patient, responded in a better, softer tone. Yes, now you have the issue of that deference politeness, that if you probably did that, I would do it on a one-on-one conversation, or probably not maybe wonder how it was done, because I'm not sure what culture or company culture this was in. but sometimes that could be perceived as aggressive. And in other places, that could be like, yay, you're very direct. Be mindful of that, because you need that diplomacy, and you need people to consider you as being very inclusive in that way. Matthew says, I'm always economic with my words and get told I'm too brisk. Matthew, you are the opposite of Christos. I'm wondering if Christos is very polite and rapport building, and in his culture of his company, that's considered too blah, 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 and too fluffy. And you may be able to add one more sentence as we start. Don't forget, #stronger. We're going to do a raffle for this. But I wanted to show you before we end. I always try to keep these workshops to 30 to 40 minutes. I was in the process of reviewing my course on tact and diplomacy, and I had put in many different scenarios. And in just a little bit, Natasha is going to show you part of this course, which makes it kind of interesting for us to understand. So now that we talked about encoding, decoding, timing, and all the politeness, or all the channel choices that we have to make according to our audience, imagine if you are a manager, and in this case, Sue is her name, and Sue is just finished wrapping up a meeting. There was a lot of conversation, and there was a little bit of conflict, but she's trying to do the wrap up, and you're going to see the story be told. She wraps up the meeting, and then she receives another email that includes her, but was not supposed to include her, right? Have you ever worked in a team where someone says something very snarly and it comes back and everyone reads it? So now Sue, the manager, has to deal with this. Natasha, are we ready to roll? We can show the whole screen. Yeah.
The email continues with a list of action items and closes with another note of appreciation to the group. A few minutes later, a team member, Bill, sends a response intended only to one recipient, but mistakenly shared with the entire group. It reads, "Thanks for nothing," is what her email should have said. "I'm tired of being pushed around by administration and tired of Sue driving her agenda to benefit her career." Wow, Sue didn't expect that. But I bet that this is a work situation that all of us fear, whether you're the sender or the receiver. As the leader, what do you think Sue should do? Here are 4 responses you can choose from.
Let's have our friends talk about the 4 responses, and I'll share with them here. So as you can see, this is a little awkward. Tatiana from the course and Tatiana today, but I wanted to show you this as being something that happens a lot. Bill is the person that has done something he shouldn't. He included the boss that he was saying she's trying to promote her career. But Sue also has to deal with this, right? She has to respond in some way. So what are the options that Sue has? And I wanted to share these options with you, and then you can tell me which one did you think was best and not. So, oops, this is that's not from another one. Do we have those answers? Yes. So Sue has to either address the whole group, would that be pretty diplomatic, but how does she do it? Sue could do nothing. So I want you to be ready to respond. Okay, everyone on your keyboards and ready to respond. Sue could not respond at all. She could just not deal with it on an email and not do anything. That's one answer. Sue, B, could email back to the group saying, "I'm sorry to see that this email included everyone. We need to discuss this as soon as possible." Okay, that's the second thing she could do that everyone could see. C, she could call Bill and ask for Bill to meet, and then she emails the group saying, "It's obvious that our meeting resulted in strong feelings today. Bill and I are meeting to talk about it." Or D, she could email back to Bill. So she just emails one person saying, "I'm not sure you intended for me to see this, but can we please discuss your thoughts?" So I want to know what you think you should do. Christos, I'm going to come back to your comment. Should she just not include anything at all, not say anything at all? Should she email the group back and say, I'm sorry that the email went to everyone? Should she call Bill and then tell the group that she's meeting? Or should she email back to Bill saying, I'm not sure you intended for me to see this, but can we please discuss your thoughts? More votes coming in. Matthew says D. Nola says D. Jose says D. Pratishta, Christos, Melissa say D. All of this. Yes, yes. My friends, does anyone not say C is a good idea? Right? As a leader, if this was just one person, one-to-one, yes, the answer is D, because you will say to Bill, hey, what's going on here? I'm trying to help and I want to make sure that we discuss this. So as a equal person to person, the answer could be D. However, my friends, Sue is a manager, and what you do and others are watching, they're going to see how tactful you are. She could rip them apart in front of the group and say, this was completely unprofessional, and Bill and I are meeting and he's going to hear about it. Obviously, that wouldn't work, but that's not going to accomplish anything but lots of gossip. So she has to address this with Bill and what his frustrations are. But to the group, for her tactful score to go up, she should meet and tell the group that they're meeting. That is the more diplomatic thing to do. A is not a good thing because she's not responding at all. And B is dealing with the whole group, but not dealing with Bill. And you know that she has to deal with Bill. So Yanis is saying, yes, I would handle it privately, and that's important. So going back, if you just joined us, which would be a little later on our way out, I love this because I'm making you think. The reason it's not D, it's because it doesn't address the rest of the group that received the email, and the gossip will still continue. If she addresses the email to the group and Bill separately, it takes more time, but it will definitely be easier for her to work with. So that's the reason there. I want to address one more thing before we do the raffle and we say goodbye. That Christos was talking about being told he's too polite and not assertive enough. He said, you're right about the culture of the company. I was trying to build rapport as I was new to the company and the manager wanted me to call out people in order to get results. I felt that building rapport and relationship was important and more effective in the long run. Bingo, absolutely correct. And Christo, I'm suggesting or assuming you're Greek and we are based on communication or a relationship-based culture, you took that approach. Maybe you could have gone to the manager and said, listen, being a Greek, I build relationships first. It may mean that we have a couple of more phone calls than you usually have, and there's no metrics for that, but trust me, I will get us business. So, or you can say, do you want me just to talk numbers? I don't feel comfortable doing that. So I would say, going back to you asking if you can approach it this way, because maybe you can actually show the company that you can still get results and build relationships. I wanted to be sure to say hi to Natasha, the other Natasha who's coming in from Atlanta, another Greek of the diaspora. So my friends, I like to keep things tight to about 30 or 40 minutes, and I am so grateful that you all have been interested in this topic and you are so engaged. Let me know if you liked a little bit of a scenario, but from a learning standpoint, I gave you the content, I had you apply it, then we saw someone apply it, and we talked about why one option is better than the other. Natasha, I think we are ready to do the raffle. So all of you that put hashtag stronger, we will go through and do a draw. This is a really good notepad, and we will send it to you in the mail. We'll also ask for your address. Yanis Mostros, yes, fantastic. That is fantastic. Yanis, thanks for joining us today. We'll go ahead and send you one of these. I wanted to say a great rest of the day to you all. I know some of you are coming in and it's pretty late. And I really appreciate you giving me 40 minutes of your day. Have a great rest of one, and let me know if you have questions on the notes. Take care. Bye-bye.